Yes.
Hmm.
Good to see your face.
Sorry?
Good to see your face.
Yeah. I think we have seen each other's face. We did a meeting for, what was it called? The non-duality forum. Do you remember it?
Yeah, very briefly, yes.
Very briefly, yes. Okay. So, shall we start chatting?
Yep.
So, Vince, would you like to tell just a bit about yourself? Um, what the path you have taken so far is in terms of your search. I'm not sure if your search has been over yet, or your inquiry, the path you've taken so far. What interested you? What interested you first of all, or what led you to? I don't know if I can say non-duality, but
Yes, I get you.
mm-hmm.
I couldn't I couldn't say when my searching started. I guess I was always a dissatisfied child. I felt the world was unfair, right from as far back as I can remember. And I always wanted. I said to my mother once when I was, I'm guessing, probably 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that. I said to my mother, "There's been a mistake made. I should not have been born here. That where I should have been born was on a world where everybody loved each other and everybody did what they wanted to do, and there was a lot of happiness and so on." And I felt at that age that it really was. I couldn't see why it wasn't that way. But then I guess I wanted to be normal. I felt like I wasn't normal and I wanted to be normal, and I put a lot of effort into trying to be normal, but I never was. I was always the odd kid out. I spent most of my lunch times at school alone in the library, reading. I guess I escaped into books. I read a book a day as a kid for as long as I can remember.
That's a lot for a child. Books.
Yes, I read every night until I couldn't stay awake. I read with a torch under the covers when my mother made me go to sleep. And
would you say that you enjoyed it, or you enjoyed reading books on? Yeah. Was it one of your enjoyments then, or was it more like a way to cope with?
I think definitely a way to cope. They were escapism. I escaped into fantasy.
Let's see.
Probably my actual physical searching started in my early 20s when I joined a religion. I joined the Baha'i religion. I had exposure to Christianity as a child, but felt pretty disappointed with all of that. I mean, I met a pedophile at Sunday school, so it was like Christianity wasn't something that it was obvious to me even as a child that didn't have it. I became a Baha'i because the community of Baha'is where I lived were seemingly loving people, but within 2 years I saw them for petty politicians. They didn't have it, and but I was off on my search, and so I started to read things and I started to look for things. and I tried all sorts of things, especially in the psychological field. I did
I
an
see.
awful lot of encounter groups. I did psycho-cybernetics,
Mm.
lots and lots and lots of things. I became a therapist. I did hypnotherapy for 5 years.
Oh,
Uh,
you were.
yeah, as a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So all the time I'm looking for happiness. I'm looking for
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
justice. I'm looking for fairness. I'm looking for things that
Mm-hmm.
I felt were just missing in normal everyday life.
Mm-hmm. Was there any particular relationship or event that caused that unsatisfaction? Was there any particular event or?
I imagine it had mostly to do with my father.
Mm,
Never feeling I had approval from him.
mm,
So probably most of my motivation at a subconscious level was looking for approval,
mm,
acceptance.
mm,
I didn't feel I had that from my father.
mm,
Uh, but I mean, I searched all of those things and all the psychology. I did all the encounter groups. I
mm,
became
mm,
I did them as a member of the encounter groups. But in the end, I was running encounter groups,
mm,
doing lots and lots of that kind of thing, rebirthing. Uh,
mm,
I guess that after that, it became a more of a spiritual thing. I started to read a
mm,
lot more
mm,
Zen, and
mm,
Ram Dass was a person that
mm,
Um,
mm,
but even at that stage, I was still very much lost in the
mm,
illusion as to
mm,
what enlightenment actually
mm,
was. I was still looking for magic, I suppose.
mm, mm,
Um, but somewhere in 2011, my wife was caring for her sister she was actually dying of breast cancer,
mm,
um, and she was in Melbourne, which was like 500 miles away from where we lived.
mm,
Um, and I was down there, and I spent a lot of time on the internet, and I managed to, I got onto a bloke in America um, at one point. Uh, I've got a block on his name now. I've forgotten what it was. But anyway, I had a brief meeting with him online,
mm,
and he said to me, he said, the mosquito bite of searching will never heal while you keep scratching it.
uh-huh.
And that went boing,
Mm,
and suddenly I realised that
mm,
I was actually stopping myself
mm,
by being invested in the search.
mm,
And at that point, everything changed for me.
mm,
So that was my awakening.
mm,
Uh,
mhm,
After the first couple of days of euphoria and some pretty amazing experiences,
mm, mhm,
I started to have doubts that I had changed. And
mm,
so I went looking again, and I actually
mm,
found Liberation
mm,
Unleashed at that
mm,
point.
mhm,
So I went to them looking for confirmation that I had
mm,
found
mm.
something. And it became quite clear to me very quickly that I
I
had
see.
something. So
So you came to
I had
LU
found something, but
Liberation. Mhm. So you came to Liberation at least after after what they call seeing through the illusion happened.
yes, I
Okay.
found them after I
Mm,
woke up. Yeah.
mm, mhm, mhm,
Um, but as the doubts returned, but I almost immediately started guiding there,
mm,
which was just fantastic
mm.
for.
Yeah, I know that your guiding was pretty. You're guiding a lot. You were guiding a lot, not now,
Yeah.
but you have guided a lot of people. So it was a joy for you to do that.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
And
Mm.
I was gaining so much from doing it. Yeah,
Same here. Yes,
it
that's
was.
absolute and a joy. for
Yeah. Yeah.
for me to guide people and see people really truly getting awakened and seeing through the illusion that people may long for so long, like 20 or 30 years, and then when they try it, they could go through it in, say, like 1 week or 2 weeks, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
I
There's
personally
a lot of
have
that.
had
And I
certain.
got so much out of it myself.
Mm,
You
mm,
know, it was great, deepening stuff.
mm,
Uh,
mm. And
every question I ask them, I ask myself.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's the point. Yes,
Yeah.
you you first you try to ask them, but you later know that you had asked that for yourself also.
Yeah.
Hence the deepening happening inside. Yes,
Mm.
that's I think I can share that with you. Mm,
Yeah. Just being,
mm,
just focusing on that
mm,
is enough to.
mm,
I feel just thinking about it. I feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up, on my body changes, and it's
mm,
it's it's
mm,
amazing. Yeah.
Every time you do it, it feels like some load you having back is lightened. Did you feel like that? Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
And that's why I stay with
mm,
groups like
mm,
Enlightenment now,
mm,
and
mm,
with the
mm.
Cohen group.
Shall we
It
talk a
keeps
bit
things
about time?
happening.
Okay, go ahead. Shall we talk a bit about that aspect of awakening? You know, a lot of people these days talk about embodiment and deepening of the seeing. And some people say that there's no such deepenings. Once you see it, it's already deepened, not deep or shallow. So, which one would you?
Well,
I
that's not
would
my
say agree,
experience.
but what's your experience?
Oh, a constant deepening,
Mm,
but
mm,
up and
mm,
down. You know,
mm,
it
mm.
fluctuates.
It's like
I
almost. I agree with you. I have the same feeling about it, and my experience is that you go like this way, like in a
spiral. Yeah, yeah,
spiral. Yeah, go down a bit. You come back, and it was
yeah,
something you notice that you have gone through something,
yeah.
and that's a nice experience. You notice that yourself. Mm, okay, nice.
Yeah.
So that guiding was the main influence on you regarding that deepening. Should I say that?
Yes,
Mm,
was not so, not anymore.
mm,
I I don't have much interest in guiding at the
mm,
moment.
mm,
For a while,
Why is that?
not not really sure about that.
Mm, mm,
But what comes to mind is that I no longer am obsessed with personally changing the world.
mm, mm, mm,
I'm much
mm,
more into accepting what is,
mm, 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 mm,
than bringing about
mm,
change. I know that change will happen.
mm,
If you ask me what I think will happen to the world, am I an optimist or a pessimist? I don't have an answer. I'm optimistic about my pessimism, or I'm pessimistic about my optimism.
Okay.
I don't know what will happen, and I'm really happy about not knowing. It's just
Mm,
it's a mystery that one can drive yourself crazy trying to work it
mm,
out.
mm,
But the reality is, we can't know.
mm,
I can't know.
mm, mm. So that naturally makes you be accepting things.
Yes,
It's not that you try to accept it, but you just accept it. You are
yeah,
accepting.
yep.
Mm. Yeah. Mm,
Including those moments when I'm so far away from being awake, where I've lost it and I'm feeling angry, or I'm
mm,
feeling frustrated, or
mm,
whatever.
mm,
I can accept that in the same way. It's
mm,
just
mm,
okay. It's just the way it is. It
mm.
doesn't mean anything. You know.
Yes. Yes. I once talked with Delma McConnell,
Yes.
who's a very good guide. she's great. And she also told that her first couple of weeks or months probably of her guiding was pretty intense. But as she continued doing it, she said that it became a bit more natural or mild than
Yeah.
the first this kind of passion, have to have people
Yeah.
get awakened or and I can relate to that also. Yeah.
I
mm,
guess when we find anything new, we want everybody to share it, everybody
mm,
to
mm,
experience it.
mm. That might be probably because there is something that is remaining in you that your one of your beliefs or it's something inside that you think you have to do something for people, and that's what I think that's one of the beliefs or one of the remaining things after awakening.
Yeah.
And as using your word, it it deepens, that drops naturally, and it comes out as a more natural thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
So Vince, how do you see what's your take on awakening now, or how is it? It might be. It seems like it's not a matter. It doesn't matter to you anymore, really, about yourself. Yourself is not about deepening more or becoming clearer, or do you have any aim or goal in terms of something related to awakening or deepening embodiment?
Well, my goal is no goal.
Okay, I
I,
should
I
steal that phrase.
the searching is really finished. I have
Mm,
no
mm,
searching
mm,
desire
mm,
anymore. But having said that, there is that thing in the back of my mind that maybe over time things will change,
mm,
but my intentions won't bring that about.
mm, mm.
They're
Well,
only one condition, yeah?
right. Well, the thing is, no one knows about it. Probably one day you might feel encouraged to inquire again, maybe.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
But
I'm
still,
always interested, but
mm,
if it comes along, I'm not going looking for it, so to speak.
mm,
Yeah,
mm. But still, you can tell in a general way that whether you have a desire to go deeper, or that desire might have weakened or might have disappeared. Forget, not forget, but in general terms.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I
It's a
I
hard
think
one,
I
isn't
can
it?
share
Yeah,
that experience with you. Yeah. Mine was that for the first couple of years was intense because I used to utilize the way how I saw it, how I saw the illusion, to relieve some pain, psychological pain. But
in yourself,
sorry,
pain in yourself.
in myself,
Yeah.
and that seemed to work, but it was like it came back. Mm.
You
And
differentiate between pain and suffering.
mhm. So it became a temporal relief when it went like this. I sometimes I feel this pain or sadness or suffering, and I recall that seeing, and I apply that seeing that there's no one to suffer. So I was like more like convincing utilizing that seeing to for a purpose. But for as years passed by, I realized that that was not the way, because any of these experiences, however noble or however authentic that might have been, it's still a memory and
Yeah.
experience. And using something I can call dead, like that, to something that is here now living, wouldn't work so much. So it was a couple of years ago that I noticed that, and then a lot of things dropped. And as you said, I came to be a bit more, far more accepting when things happen, things that I didn't like happen,
Mm.
and so on. Are you
Did you label those things as suffering at that point?
sorry?
Did you still label those things as suffering at that point? Those things
Not
you didn't
really,
like?
not really,
No.
not anymore.
So they were just things you didn't like.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
So we can probably say that that is the end of suffering when we ceased to label things as
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So, are you familiar with these kind of process that some people might take after seeing through the illusion? Do you
Um,
do you
I
think
don't know
that
what you mean.
there's a similar process that everyone goes through after seeing through the illusion, or that may vary
Oh,
with people?
I have no idea about other people.
Have you helped
Um,
people after they've seen through the illusion? Something like something that is done in groups like I forgot the name of the group, but um, after seeing aftercare group,
after.
aftercare. There were some in Facebook, weren't they?
Oh, okay. Yes, yes, yes. I know what you mean now.
Mm.
Um, I, for people newly awakened, I think
Mm.
that would
Ah,
probably be good
ah,
value. Yeah.
ah.
Um,
Mm.
uh, I when the Cohen group,
Mm.
when I look at a Cohen, I've lately been thinking I need to talk to you about this, but it occurs to me that Cohens are valuable for the unawakened.
Mm-hmm.
It's an attempt to bring them into a place where they might become aware of something that takes them towards awakening.
Mm-hmm.
But for the already awakened, the koan is entirely different.
Mm.
The intent of the koan doesn't compute
Mm-hmm.
for me. When I read those koans, it's like it's not that I have an answer, but I understand what the koan is
Mm-hmm.
attempting to bring out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so on the Facebook group, I'm I don't want to write what my response is to the koans because that will spoil it for other people.
Ah.
Uh,
Mm.
it's better that I add another koan or
Mm.
uh, deepen the question somehow.
Mm.
Um, do you how do you feel about the value of koans for the already awakened?
I'm not really familiar with what you have been telling the Coens. Would you explain what it is about and how the procedure is, or what kind of method is used in it?
I'm not quite sure what you're asking. What when with the koans? Are the koans that I've put down?
Mm-hmm.
I don't. There's no formal anything. They're just things that come to mind,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it just seems like it's a question that might lead somebody to consider things differently.
I see.
That's all. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It's sorry, I might be misunderstanding that thing you are talking about. Would you spell that out? What koans?
Really, I was asking you what your thoughts were about the value of a koan for those
Ah,
people
right.
who awaken.
Sorry, I was misunderstanding you. Yeah, koan. Um,
If
yes.
somebody asks you a koan, if somebody puts a koan to you,
Mm,
I rather imagine that you would have your version
mm,
of
yes.
my
Mm,
response to
mm,
that,
mm,
and there would be no mystery for you in that. There would be
mm, mm,
what is attempting to be brought out would be really obvious to you.
yes. So
Whereas for the
basic.
unawakened, it's a big question mark, isn't it?
Mm, mm. Well, there's a whole system in it. First of all. And the range it covers is quite broad. It it the traditional koan system, which was founded by a Zen master called Hakuin. Probably you might have heard about him. The name Hakuin. No, he was a man from the Edo period of Japan, and he was from Rinzai sect, and he systematized. He picked lots of koans that existed. That is said to be there. It is said to be that there are more than 107. Sorry, 1,700. So he picked some of the important koans and he made a system out of it. And that system covered the it it, it was for people who are not awakened. So the first koan is made to for that single purpose, to awaken people, which was to just be single pointed about one theme or one sound, and then lead him to breakthrough. Mm. And after that awakening, or what is called breaking through the gate, is admitted by the teacher, he goes along that path, that system, which gradually takes him through a lot of ways of understanding of that one single truth. So it's like have seeing one thing from different perspectives. Mm. But that still is something pretty much made up, because there isn't actually having a lot of viewpoints to see one thing, but it seems like that because it's made like that. So one of the aims for using that system is to just having him keep inquiring or keep practicing along that way, so that something just pops up, he can deal with that. And it's very useful in that way. So it is designed to lead him to the end, in which he returns back to the original state, where he wasn't he didn't care about anything about awakening, non-awakening, and so on. So it's a well-made system. And also there are disadvantages of it, in which um, when teachers are not so skillful in using that system, there may be possibilities that teachers and students may get stuck at some aspect of that koan, and without going back to the place in which there's no need uh, of koan at all. So that's one of the problems that koan always faces. It depends on how or who uses it. if the person who uses it to lead people is skillful and also clear, it's a very good system. But as it is designed for so that every I wouldn't say teacher, but every teacher, I would say, can use it. Some of the teachers are not really skillful or
Yep.
clear. So they misuse the koan and leading the students off the path sometimes. So yeah, that's one problem. And another problem about it is that there are so many of koans that it's very difficult for people to just complete it. Especially those who have day jobs, you know, those who want to try this koans but don't have full time to fully inquire into them, and some of the koans it may take years to go through, so it's not realistic. So from that perspective, I am now trying to adopt them to make it fit to people living the modern era who might be busy having day jobs like me. I myself have day jobs, and I have a son. I have family, so I don't have. I'm not able to inquire into koans 24/7. So I'm trying to get more focused on few important essential koans and make it more understandable to people from different cultures also. Because
So the last thing I want to do is sabotage what you're trying to do with the group. But I would like to be helpful.
Thank you.
In that group. So I do need guidance from you as to what is helpful and what is not.
Okay. So you know about the pointers when guys from the website Liberation Unleashed use, there are some pointers that a person is good at using and one always uses. And these I regard as new koans. There are a lot of similarities between pointers and koans, both of which aim at leading people to see through the illusion and see their true nature. So what would be very helpful is that you share your own pointers to the group, and I like everyone to have a look, and it's more of collective wisdom rather than one great master doing everything for the students. That relates to the problem of guruism.
Yes.
That framework of a great teacher and less pupils always have the danger of making it into a relationship of guru and blind followers. So I want to avoid that.
I see two things. If you ask me what enlightenment is about, I see two things. One is that my goal has always been, even through Liberation Unleashed, I wasn't focused on the no self thing. What I was focused on was a difference between story and what was actual.
Would you like to elaborate? That I think that is a very important topic to discuss here.
Yeah. We, especially in the West, tend to spend a large proportion of our focus in story, whilst at the same time believing that is actual, it's real, when in fact it's not, it's totally made up. So that is one illusion that I think is one group of illusions, or one direction
Mm.
that I feel is the most helpful in waking people up.
Mm.
The second one is the idea that enlightenment is something magical.
Mm.
My reality is that it is so ordinary that it is, and I don't know if what I'm talking about is enlightenment. I don't know what this enlightenment thing is.
Mm.
I just know that having seen through many, many different illusions, that the idea of the magical thing, and in excuse me, in the early days, we got sucked in by the stories from the East that we would have a guru that would give us transmission.
Mm.
They would transmit enlightenment to somebody and so on. So to bring back people's expectations to something that is ordinary, but wonderfully ordinary, is the second thing. If I can achieve either of those two, and especially if I can achieve both of those two, at Liberation Unleashed, I came across many people who were already awake, but could not accept it because they just believed in the magic. They just believed in the idea that enlightenment was transcendent. And so they went back to sleep. They never, they were already awake, but couldn't accept it.
In that sense, everyone's awake.
Some people are, how do I put it then, more mature. In Jed McKenna's terms, they'd be human adults, whereas the majority of asleep people are still children, as an analogy, I guess. So those two things, I think, are the big ones to focus on when it comes to helping other people.
Vince, regarding the second point, what do you think is the main cause of people having such tremendous, sometimes tremendous expectation on what is called enlightenment or awakening? Would it be reading or watching YouTube videos?
Well, more than reading, but yes, I guess reading and the transmission of that written word. In the East, particularly, there seems to be the way to enlightenment for a lot of religions, for a lot of sects, is devotion. I think they call it bhakti.
In India,
the love, the love and the faith and the belief and this. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from. And then, of course, there are always these stories about gurus having magical powers. And maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe that is an actual thing. I have no idea whether that's the case. It's certainly not part of my experience.
Do you think that it's one of the main causes?
I think so. Yes, I think that's where it comes from, and coupled with or on the foundation of the fact that we want to believe in this. We want to believe in magic. It's a desire we all have to transcend base instincts and yet we look at the world now and there's so much of this around. There's so much pain and suffering and murder and mayhem and everything. It's better than it ever was, but it's still there in huge amounts, isn't it?
Yes, in these times, it's natural for that people would want to believe in a secret button which once you push it, everything is done, all suffering gone. That's not the way. So,
well, it kind of is the way. There is a button. The button is to wake up, but but not quite the way of the
It's more like a start, or it's more like an opening
yeah,
rather than an end. So,
yeah.
okay. How would you cope with these expectations if you were to, say, guide one through those expectations? What would be your main focus or technique, process, whatever?
Um,
Mm.
it's well, probably my answer is the same with both that and with also seeing through the illusion of believing in stories. It's very much an opportunistic thing. So if I'm talking to somebody who is looking for something that I can offer them, so in other words, I don't offer this to people unless they ask these days,
Mm.
and that very rarely happens.
Mhm.
But if I have a seeker, for example, and I'm talking to them, almost every sentence they say will be full of opportunities
Mm.
to change the direction,
Mm.
change the course. So it's very much an opportunistic thing
Mm.
where I might ask them a question about something they've said that will highlight
Mm.
the reality of that
Mm.
question, you know,
Mm.
um, and it will be to do with um, why is it so? Why is this? Is this actual or is it a story? Does it come from a belief or is it, you know? And what can we actually know? And and the paradox is everything, absolutely everything, comes from a story.
Yes.
So we can't actually know anything,
Mm.
no matter what. No matter what I think I know,
Mm.
it's a belief.
Mm.
And that belief is just another way of saying it's a story.
Right. For example, when you see an apple, you think that that is inherently an apple, but it's not. Most of the people think that it's an objective thing called apple that has an inherent apple in it, but it's a story. So without that story, you can't just
Yes,
take it as something concrete. So yeah, that's one of the connotations of the word emptiness. Without word and more than word, it's more than words. It's a word and all those systems buried in oneself that makes that person see reality being out there
yeah.
as something inherently it. But it's as you told, it's a story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last night I watched on television
Mhm.
the first of a series about quantum physics.
Mhm. Mhm.
And of course, quantum physics has been around for some time, and I've had, you know, I thought I knew about it, but I thought I'd watch this anyway.
Mhm.
And it just inspired me. It was just
Yeah.
so fantastic
Mhm.
because it was like back in the 1800s, there was Niels Bohr and there was Einstein, and Niels Bohr was saying that entanglement was real, that there was some mystical thing going on that we don't know about, but we know that it is an actual thing.
Mhm.
And Einstein was saying, no, 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 no.
Mhm.
These things are already exist, and we're just revealing them at this time. And this went on for ages and ages, many years of physicists arguing about whether Einstein was right or whether Niels Bohr was right. But in the end, some experiments were done not so long ago that showed that Einstein was wrong and Bohr was right, that entanglement is an actual thing, and that whatever exists only exists because we look at it,
Mhm.
because we measure it.
Mhm.
Before that,
Mhm.
it has no inherent existence.
Mhm.
So the question is, beyond that, and I'll watch the next episode tonight, is that when we look at it and we see the outcome, is that an inherent existence or is it purely a projected
Mm.
existence?
Mm.
I
That
think the
might
latter.
become a very good koan indeed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And when we apply that to our daily life,
Mm.
when we think, I look out the window and I see a car or I see a person,
Mm.
they don't exist if I'm not looking out the window.
Mm.
You know, it's easy to imagine that, of course, they're there, even though I wasn't looking. And when I look, I discover their existence.
Mm.
But in fact, when I look, I create their existence.
Right.
Wow, isn't that that's something else? That's something else.
So when you do things like this and do this,
Yeah,
our common sense tells that the hand is still there.
yeah,
But it's
exactly. Yeah,
not.
it's not. But if you look, it becomes yes,
Mm.
yeah. And so, how the state of the world that we see is the reality we're creating.
Mm. Mm.
And I can say, oh, all those other people
Mm.
are doing this, creating all the mayhem in the world.
Mm.
But in actual fact, it's me.
And would you say that being awakened is a way to clearly see that aspect of life that we are participating in? There's no inherent nature of things. There's a lot of story going on and things like that. Mm.
I, I no, I wouldn't. I would say it's on a path towards that.
Mm.
Um, when I say that that out there is coming into existence because I'm looking, that's very much an intellectual thing.
Yes.
I don't have an experience
Mm.
of that coming into being.
Mm.
But that's the difference between illusion and delusion.
Ah.
Delusion is when I believe something. Illusion is when I see something but don't believe it.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So when we see an illusion of, say, water on the road because of heat on the bitumen ahead of us, we know it's an illusion because our experience has taught us that when we get there, there's no water. It's just a heat haze.
Mirage.
That's an illusion.
Mm.
But if I get my raincoat out and put my gumboots on,
Mm.
that's a delusion.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see.
So maybe actual enlightenment is having deepened to the point where one actually experiences the coming into being of that which is observed. I don't know, maybe.
Mm. Mm.
Maybe I'll find out one day, maybe I won't. I don't know.
No one knows. No one knows.
No, no.
Mm. Mm.
And when one does know, who is that one?
That's a good question. Yeah, of
Is
course.
there a mirror? Is there a mirror there? Are we bringing ourselves into existence by looking into a mirror?
Mm.
And maybe what we see out there as apparent objective reality
Mm.
is in fact the mirror.
Mm. Mm.
Maybe we see that in order to objectify ourselves as the seer.
Because we wouldn't be able to see ourselves
No.
in other ways. Mm.
So I don't exist unless I'm seeing something else.
Mm. Yeah,
And
literally.
that other thing doesn't exist unless I'm seeing it. So that's a funny circle, isn't it?
Mm. Mm. I see. Um, would you say that this path of I'm not really sure if you would call this a path, but would you recommend would it be something that could be recommended to a lot of people, like say, so for example, I'm my idea is that something from it can be applied to education.
Oh,
Mm.
absolutely,
What's
yes.
your take on that? What do you think?
I think I had for a couple of years an obsession with the idea that mindfulness should be taught
Mm.
from kindergarten on in every school.
Mm. I hear that some schools in the US do
Some
that.
are, yes, yeah.
Mm,
But as soon as a person, albeit a child or an adult, can observe the process of their own mind, they start to have
mm,
a breakaway from the entrapment of having to live out those stories
mm,
is the beginning. Yeah.
mm. Some of the people I know was actually a person I know once told that religion can become science. Would you agree with that?
My take on religions
Mm,
are that they all rely very much on faith.
mm,
They all rely very much on belief and on story.
mm,
So for them to become scientific would undercut most of their foundations, I think.
mm.
On the other hand, I've certainly seen science become religion.
Ah, the other way around.
Yeah.
Mm. You mean beliefs being attached to that scientific process and it becoming, is your connotation positive or negative around that? When you say science,
No, I didn't quite hear you.
sorry?
I didn't quite hear what your
I'm
question
sorry.
was.
So is your connotation a negative one or a positive one when you say science can become religion?
I would see that as a negative thing,
Negative.
yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mm,
So like we have the scientists that for example, are being paid by the pharmaceutical companies.
mm,
Uh, it's not so scientific,
mm,
you know. We can cherry pick,
mm,
um, but of course, if we look at it at a fundamental level, science never speaks of facts. Science always says the current hypothesis is this,
mm, mm,
and so they're always open to change.
mm,
So in a way,
mm,
they're awakened to
mm,
the point where they say nothing is actually known. It's always a discovery, an ongoing discovery
mm,
of things.
mm. Also, we can say that science explains how it is done or what it is made of or how come, but it doesn't speak much about uh, what itself.
Mm,
Makes sense. So when you ask questions like what's life, what is it,
mm,
we can talk about how it is, what it is composed of, or how it came into forms, but still it doesn't have a different, well, there will be a different answer, but it
yeah.
doesn't quite do to solve this fundamental question of what
So
it,
religion is very ready to tell you what.
mm, but it becomes belief. Mm, mm. So that's the thing. I Yes, that's one another topic about going your own path. Mm. But still, there's a danger when you go your own path. You think that you are going your own path, but actually you're going other person's path. But you are not aware of that. So there is a quite difficult balance between getting instructions but not believing it
Yeah.
and doing it yourself and then going your own way. So you just can't say that you will do whatever you want because that leads to unconsciously believing in some systems
Oh,
or
exactly. Yeah. I think there's an inherent danger in
mm,
attempting to do it alone
mm,
because we aren't alone. Um, I mean, we're not separate.
mm.
Um, it's a tricky one because
Yeah,
of language, but
yeah,
because we're not separate, we can't say we're joined, because that would imply separate things that are joined, but the interconnection is total, total. I mean, I can clearly see that what I call this, my circumstances, my current state, my current life, everything around me, everything was totally dependent on absolutely everything that has ever happened in the entire universe since the beginning of time, or even before that, who knows, you know, that one mosquito coughing differently, or anything that changed, one drop of water that didn't fall where it did 1,000,000 years ago would have changed what is now.
Butterfly effect.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And the consequence of that is that there is no actual aloneness. There is no actual my path. My path is dependent on the fact that you and I are seeing and talking with each other now changes everything for me and for you.
Yes, definitely.
And for everybody in my life. Even people who are, my wife out there is being changed by what's going on in here. She doesn't know it, but it is, yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's what's friendship is about also.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's more obvious with friendship, of course.
Vince, what do you think is the optimal kind of relationship when it comes when it is about inquiry and these kind of activities? There has been a lot of types of relationships, like guru and students, probably more casual ones, friends, and other kinds of relationships I can't come up with. But what do you think is the best relationship that people can make in terms of inquiring into the reality, truth or reality about things?
I think the attitudes that would be most productive would be non-judgmental inquiry.
So that implies that those who lead the inquiry or lead the discussion, probably there should be some part, that one role that one of two people or three people has in that dialogue or talk. And if one person has a lot of beliefs or preconceived ideas about things, he wouldn't be able to. He will judge things according to his own stereotypes or beliefs. So that would be prerequisite for a sound dialogue to happen.
Yeah, I was very aware when I was guiding that it was helpful if the person I was guiding had beliefs about me that may or may not be true, but that I knew more than they knew. If they believed that, they could accept what I say. They could accept my questions in a different way because they believe something about me. But it's, of course, just a story, you know. I may or may not know. So, of course, it depends on the relationship. So if there is an inquirer, somebody inquiring a seeker, then it probably does help for them to believe that I know something that they don't know and that I can help them find out about that. But the reality is that in most of my life, I don't talk with other people who are awake. I don't know anybody in my local community who is awake. I mean, there may be people, I just don't know them. I don't know that. I mean, people don't know that I'm awake. They don't have any idea. I don't tell them that I'm awake.
Yeah, who knows? You mean people around you who are
Yes.
living close to you? I see.
Even all of them, even them. Yeah. I mean, my wife knows that I think that I'm awake, but she doesn't. She thinks it's a lot of rubbish.
That same thing is happening here with my wife.
She sees me getting frustrated, or she sees me getting angry, and she says, "Ah, you're not enlightened."
Okay, funny. All right.
But that's okay. That's okay. I don't mind, you know. And
Mm,
so I talk to people all the time, and I don't any longer
mm,
look for opportunities to change their life.
mm,
They think Donald Trump is wonderful, that's okay.
mm,
Uh, I can still be friends with them. They can still be nice people, good people.
mm,
Just because they have
mm,
silly ideas about what's good and what's not good, it
mhm,
doesn't change that.
mm,
Um, I don't. I don't. I don't any longer have the need to fix everybody up around me.
mm. Is that because you have gone through all these layers of beliefs, stories, and so on that you have had for many years?
Um, I am impelled to help somebody if I feel they're suffering.
Mm,
I do. I would like to
mm,
ease people's suffering.
mm,
My wife thinks it's because I want them to see me as a good person, which is probably true.
mm,
Um, but also, I guess it's just that compassion that especially when I see that suffering is unnecessary, that it simply requires a different attitude for the suffering to go.
mm,
But I also accept that some people are never going to change that attitude, so they will continue to suffer.
mm,
And then I cease to suffer about their suffering.
mm. You certainly know that there is something you can do for them, and there is something that you just can't do to
Yes,
for them. Mm,
and
mm,
you can offer, but
mm,
if a gift is not accepted when you offer, that doesn't,
mm.
it doesn't impact on me,
Um, so this whole topic about awakening and non-duality or seeing through the illusion, we can say that it's not truly popular around the world, so to say. Mm.
which I find a bit hard to understand. But yes,
Some
that's
people
certainly right.
think of it as a kind of cult or something
Another
like that.
religion, yeah.
Mm. So I would try, I would like to try to make it not popular, but to be more accepted by people by making it easier for people to really understand it intellectually. Because if people first of all don't understand it intellectually, there would be if especially if they are not if they do not have the urge to do that, uh,
Mm.
for something like suffering, personal suffering, it wouldn't have any appeal to people. So I personally emphasize the intellectual understanding uh, of awakening truth as well as
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, sure.
more visceral ones as a gateway to as one of the processes at the very
Mm.
beginning of the process. There, I think I almost think there should be some kind of intellectual understanding, and
Yeah.
we can make it very easy to understand it if we are really clear about it.
I think there's a bit of a trap
Mm,
in thinking
mm,
that understanding is an answer.
mm,
I've I I read an article a few years ago that talked about conservative people having almost always been raised in an atmosphere where there is one person dominant in that, and that those conservative people, it was usually the father, but not always, often the mother. And as they became adult, they transferred that father figure to either church or government, and that's how they organised their life. They had somebody telling them what was good and what wasn't good, and so on. And then I read another article that said it was a scientific article that showed, using an MRI scans, that these people had a dominant, the predominant part of their brain was the limbic system, the lizard, the fear, fight, flight center of their brain. They operated out of there. Whereas those people who were more progressive and maybe you'd say left-leaning, they predominantly use their cognitive part of their brain. So we almost divided the world up into two camps of people. Those people who operate from here, understanding isn't going to change anything for them because they operate purely at an emotional level and based on a fear response. Whereas those who are able to utilise the cognitive part of their brain, then understanding was definitely a big thing for them. You know, facts could change them, but facts would never change the conservative people. They had to feel safe before they could do anything. And so, to my way of thinking, how do we get those people, and they're probably the majority of people in the world, how do we get them to feel safe? That's the issue. And until they feel safe, they are never going to accept anything that we believe in. It's all hocus pocus to them.
It's like they're feeling like there is an enemy in front of them when there isn't any, but they feel like that, as if prehistoric, not prehistoric, but the animals. As animals act when they meet their enemy, they, as you said, fight or flight response. And we can see that in a lot of people who seem to be intellectual, but it's not really.
And I'm afraid that probably encompasses most of the people who are very heavily into religion. Not all, but a lot.
So would you say that we have to, it's not for everyone, that understanding thing is not for everyone, because just understanding it intellectually won't change anything about this fight or flight response.
So is it the case that because they've been brought up like this and they're very, very conditioned in this way,
I see,
that it's an impossibility to change them?
I see.
One of the things that's come out of some of the research to do with PTSD, soldiers coming back from war with post-traumatic stress, whatever, is psilocybin, magic mushrooms, is somehow a way to transfer things from here to here. But of course, that's not available for most people. So it can be done, the transfer can be done, but for the majority of people, while they're busy fighting the rest of the world and keeping things the way they think it should be kept, there's probably not much chance to change them. And so do we get them and focus on the others? I don't know.
I think that's a place for techniques like yoga or qigong, the traditional ones, comes on the stage. These techniques surely will help them transfer from here to here by working from their body, not from the it's not from, but it's working directly to that
Yeah,
part. And
I would agree. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, these days there are techniques like emotional freedom techniques with which they tap on certain acupuncture spots, and they, directly
yep, yeah,
affect that part. So yeah, so the connotation is that there are a lot of ways, which methods or ways that can help.
yeah.
Mm, mm,
Maybe mostly a person needs to get to a certain stage of suffering before they will be motivated to
yes.
engage something
Mm,
that will
mm,
transfer
mm,
that. Yeah,
mm. And there's a high possibility that they encounter one of these techniques, and they can be uh, their pain will be relieved, uh, can be made lighter, and then they can inquire further
yeah,
into
yeah.
the essential part, the root cause.
Seems like it's a bit of a trip over. Once they get to a certain point, they'll trip over and then they're away, and that's okay. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's one of the rational ways to think about this whole path, mm, through awakening, through going through the illusions and so on. Mm. Wow. Yeah, great. All right, Vince, thank you. I think we can wrap it up. So any final comments? Anything you want to talk about, you want to discuss, or anything you are interested in these days? What your activity is?
uh,
Mm.
I just play lots of golf these days.
Yeah, I'm not getting to it thoroughly.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I just let me know either by messenger or however, any way I can help with the Cohen
That was
group.
great. Yeah.
I think
Uh,
it
yeah, I would like, I would call for your friendship.
I
uh, and
have,
wisdom. I think I have to borrow your wisdom to make the project successful, and so that we can make a collective, produce collective wisdom by working together, and making it not dogmatic, neutral, without a lot of not so much of religious connotation, more like a scientific one. So yeah, I have things in my mind that are not organized yet. So probably we can talk these in this way, so that this it's very
yeah,
helpful to talk in this way, because
I have to do this anytime. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
that's what is dialogue is wonderful. You get to
yeah,
know about what you're talking about.
yeah.
Sounds funny, but yes. So thank you. Thanks a lot. It was my pleasure to talk to you and get
Mine
to,
too. Yeah.
and I would be very glad if we can keep our friendship for a long
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I
time.
feel a great connection with you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think this I would call this day for this time, and we could have another dialogue sometime when we feel the need for it, or really feel like doing it. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank
Okay. Thank you.
just one thing I would like to make sure. Can I use? You talked about something personal, I think, at the beginning of our dialogue. I was wondering.
It's yours. You're welcome to it.
Thank you.
No worries.
Probably I will edit a bit of it, some of the recording, but probably I will use the whole thing for my YouTube
I
video.
have I have no need for secrets. Everything's fine. Yeah.
That's great. It's kind of
Okay.
good. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
So thank you again, and I'll see you on the forum.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Have a great day, Vince.
Yeah.
Thanks
You too.
a lot.
Bye.
Bye.